After only a few days of deep controversy, Firefox has decided to speak out against this new TOS change and sort of double down. Let's go ahead and talk about what they're doing. Welcome back to Switch to Linux. If you like this type of content, please feel free to subscribe to the channel, leave us a like and a comment down below. I do want to focus a little bit here on some of the issues in the last videos that were repeated in the comments. We want to talk about what the direction is going forward. So let's go ahead and start with this. Two videos I've done in the last couple of weeks have been completely misrepresented by several people, which is kind of hilarious to me because it makes me wonder, can you people wipe your own butt sometimes? So the video started with a very pithy statement suggesting Firefox is doing something so crazy, some people might actually want to switch to Chrome. If you actually watched that video and thought I was suggesting you switch to Chrome, you need a checkup from the neck up. Literally, something is wrong with your brain. Because if you spend any time on this channel, you know I do not recommend Google products. We do YouTube because this is where people are, but we do not use any other services in that. You don't find Google Analytics on the majority of my websites, I'll say. I think a few of them might still have it. Definitely not the Switch to Linux brands or other things like that. But we don't use Google services. We don't recommend Google services. Chrome is the last place I would possibly send anybody. The other factor is some people said, well, this is so that Tor can figure out who your users are. Well, that's also incorrect because this only applies to the Firefox binaries, not the source code. Tor browser takes the source code, makes modifications in order to do what Tor does. This is not impacting the Tor browser, LibreWolf, or Waterfox. Now, I did not mention Waterfox in the other video. To be clear, I didn't mention any alternatives, and I should have. I'll own that one. Let's go ahead and talk about alternatives now. If this is enough for you and Firefox is like, nope, peace out, yo, I'm done. LibreWolf is the best Firefox alternative. If you like Firefox and you don't want to be on the Chromium engine base, LibreWolf is your best place to go. It is effectively Firefox properly security hardened. Great, no problems. Waterfox is another option. I steer away from that because they had a major blunder where they sold to System1, which was a data analytics company. Now they have since gone independent again. So overall, I think we can trust Waterfox. Let's just chalk it up to a young person made a boneheaded decision because a lot of Benjamins were on the table. I can understand that, and maybe it is worth me reinvestigating Waterfox down the road. That is an option. Another option staying in the Firefox engine is going to be Molvad browser. Now, Molvad browser is not as easy to use as LibreWolf because they've locked down the ability to adjust extensions because the entire premise behind Molvad is to make every user on Molvad look like every other user on Molvad, which is the best thing you can do for privacy. It's not that there's no data there, it's that all data looks like exactly the same user. And that is actually a really big help. Now, if you're not tied to the Firefox engine, you could go to Brave browser, which is very good. And here's the fact, I use a variety of web browsers, including Firefox. My Firefox is hardened. These changes, while are disconcerting and cause a lot of pause and caution, they are not the end of the world for what's going on in the browsers. This is not the most horrible thing, but there are some behind the scenes things that are very problematic that we definitely want to think about and address going forward. That being said, let's go ahead and get on into their post here. So they did mention this over on X, and so I always jump over to X. You can follow me over there at Switch to Linux, and I do like getting over there and just kind of seeing what's going on in the world as I'm uploading my videos, getting ready and things like this. If you want to see me reposting a lot of fun computer memes, basically that's what we do, that and video announcements. So they had this, and they said, we have been listening to your feedback and concerns about the new terms of use and privacy update. And to clarify, we made a few updates to the documents and shared details about our reasoning in a new blog post. Yeah, we're going to have a look at that, but let's go ahead and take a moment to, let's take 2 minutes of hate, borrowing from 1984. You know, Firefox is collecting all this data. Let's just borrow from 1984 the rest of the way and have 2 minutes of hate. Because if you read through this entire comment section is basically, nope, peace out, I'm out, I'm done. After 20 years, I'm done, I'm out. There was not a single positive comment down here that I saw. And so, too late, people are jumping to forks. Your privacy notice is bad enough for me to leave. So long. Thanks for all the fish. Always support you since your earlier. That might be the only positive one. I'm not sure if that's passive aggressive or not. The changes are just for legal reasons while keeping the original promise. You could have said clearly in a few sentences, but no more blog posts and updates. I don't want to bother with us anymore. So he sounds like he's peacing out. Wow, you listen to us? That's definitely sarcastic. All is forgiven. I'm back to loving you. Okay, maybe that guy's positive too. In order to make Firefox commercially viable, there are a number of places we need to collect and share data with our partners. No, thank you. So you can kind of see the overall trend here is that people are not liking this update, even with them coming in and having some update. People are like, nope, you were done. If Firefox survives another 5 years, it will be shocking. And that's very sad because we need Firefox to survive. Because if Firefox goes down, we are only left with a Google-controlled core and WebKit, which I'm not sure is WebKit Apple controlled, but it certainly isn't particularly good. Now we have a Ladybird coming, but it's going to be a few years before we even see some alpha versions of that browser coming up. And of course, Perplexity is working on a browser. I didn't cover it in the news the other day because there were no details about it. Is it an independent browser engine or is it based on Chromium? I couldn't find any information, but hey, Perplexity is out there trying to come up with an AI-powered browser. Isn't that exciting? Well, here is the update that they did just a couple days after, this was like a day or two after my video. Wednesday, we shared we're introducing a new terms of service and privacy notice. Since then, we've been listening to some of our community's concerns with parts of the terms of use, specifically about licensing. Our intent was to be as clear as possible about how we make Firefox work, but in doing so, we created some confusion and concern. With that in mind, we're updating the language to more clearly reflect the limited scope of how Mozilla interacts with user data. See, they're trying to downplay. It's a limited. And I went through that video. I'm trying not to make this one 35 minutes long. And some people said, well, I saw somebody else do this in 7 minutes. That was probably Mental Outlaws. It was a very good video. But he didn't read for you the privacy policy that I did and showed you the problems with it. Okay? Because privacy has been shifting into this, not we don't collect your data, but we're just telling you what we're doing, and so that's perfectly legal. I want something that doesn't collect our data, and that's the factor. Now, here is what the new language says. So that really dystopian part now sounds like this, which in my opinion is still dystopian. You give Mozilla the rights necessary to operate Firefox. This includes processing your data as we describe in the Firefox privacy notice. It also includes a non-exclusive royalty-free worldwide license for the purpose of doing as you request with the content you input in Firefox. This does not give Mozilla ownership of that content. Now, there's a couple things to this statement. The first is as described in the privacy notice. Now, the reason that other video was 35 minutes long is because we read the privacy notice, which shows you Firefox is not a privacy company. This is not about privacy. This is about informed consent, and that is not the spirit that we want to do. The second factor is some people said, well, does this include what are you doing with our usernames, passwords, and the art that we create? That's a very good question. Now, some people have said, well, this just allows them to utilize anything we put into Firefox to train AI. That is a very concerning question that I would like to see more clarity on. Now, the other factor here is that this still contains the language of non-exclusive, royalty-free, worldwide license for the purpose of doing as you request. Now, what they're trying to get at is it's a web browser. Obviously, some data must be processed. The problem is that whole element of going back into the privacy notice. I'll refer you to the previous video, but in short, 1 or 2 sentence summary here, the privacy notice allows them to collect a bunch of data, effectively, quote unquote, de-anonymize it, which we know is easy to reverse engineer, all for the purpose of sharing it with the advertising partners. Now, what I thought was very terrifying down here is in the TLDR. Yeah, despite going through all that, I do want to read this in the TLDR because there is something very frightening in here. Mozilla doesn't sell data about you. Parentheses, in the way most people think about selling data. Interesting. We don't buy data about you. We've changed our language because some jurisdictions define the word sell more broadly than others. Other people would usually understand that word. Firefox has built-in privacy features plus options that let you fine-tune your data settings. And it kind of goes into some of the different states. Here's their reasoning. They mention California's consumer privacy protection laws. They mention other states, including Virginia and Colorado, coming up with it. All these have different definitions of what it means to sell your data. But this is the core of the issue, that when I input data into a privacy-focused web browser, there should be no data being transmitted at all from the browser except to the server I'm interacting with. So if I pull up Firefox and I go in and I do a search engine, whether that's Google or Startpage or DuckDuckGo or whatever else, I might be agreeing to the terms of that particular service. That obviously they would collect the data, and this is why I use ones that are more privacy focused than Google. I don't use Google for a service, for a search engine. If I type in data, Firefox shouldn't be in the middle of that. Now, oftentimes they are because, for example, I'm not sure if they still do this. In fact, I'm pretty sure they don't. But there was a time Linux Mint packaged their version of Firefox. The default search engine was Yahoo for some brained out reason. But they had a deal with Yahoo that searches done through Yahoo would go back and give a portion of the ad revenue back to Linux Mint. Now, does Linux Mint get that data? No, but there was an affiliate code in Linux Mint to tell Yahoo that search came from Linux Mint, but Linux Mint didn't necessarily have that data. That could be problematic. Very easy change your default search engine. Okay. That's how a lot of these affiliate systems work. That's what the problem with Honey was a few months back, or maybe it's a few months back now. Yeah. So Honey comes out and blows up. And what it's doing is it's changing that affiliate reference code from whoever the creator was you wanted to support, and Honey stole it instead. And so that's really what the controversy was. The problem is that as you're inputting data into Firefox, Firefox is collecting some of that data. Now, a lot of what they're doing stays local on your browser, but some of it does go out, according to their privacy notice. According to their privacy notice, whenever we share data with our partners, we put a lot of work in making sure the data we share is stripped of potentially identifying information or shared only in the aggregate or is put through our privacy-preserving technologies. That's the problem. Those people, Firefox, Mozilla, listen to us. We do not want that data going to anybody. You don't need a privacy notice, or you don't need a terms of use if you're not doing any of that crap. Now, there was another place they did leave this post also over on the connect.mozilla.org. So you could come over here, and if you wanted to reply, I didn't read all of these replies. I did read everything over there on X. I did not read everything over here, but it's once again not particularly encouraging for Mozilla. Mozilla's employees are going to want to go home and have a long drip of something saucy. That's for sure. It doesn't seem any different for layman's comprehension of data collection. Clearly, you hid something about the new AI features. Please put this in a plugin before deploying these features. Your plugin becomes popular, integrated into your core software. That's a great solution. Take all this crap and it's a plugin. If I want to support, here's the thing. What if I say, okay, it's an open source project. Now, we understand an open source project needs to keep its doors open. We need to have some form of revenue coming in. But when you talk about profitability in a business means that you can either make the income come in more or you can make the outgo go out less. What this guy here is suggesting is, hey, maybe one thing, let's ask the user base, would you like to support and donate more? As much as I don't like some of these pop-ups, I criticized them in the past, maybe give us a page on the first install. Would you like to donate? Make it very clear how to donate, that individual users could donate to keep the browser free of all of this nonsense. Or somebody says, hey, here's an option. Install this plugin, and we will have a series of fairly non-intrusive, fairly privacy-preserving ad systems on your network, and you can support us using that instead of giving us money, and this works for us. Fine, install as a plugin, and I can do that, and I can support Mozilla through that type of passive thing. It's kind of like if you want to support a YouTube channel, you can allow ads on that YouTube channel. That's cool. No big deal. It's usually better to give the creator $1, though, a month. That's fine, even better. And if we gave Mozilla $1 a month, but remember, the problem is the amount of money coming in versus the amount of money going out. We're going to get to that in a moment. We're going to see a few more of these, another 2 minutes of hate here, I guess. Mozilla's leaders possibly alienating their long-standing privacy-conscious users to these questionable directions. I'm telling you, if Firefox doesn't revert its old user-respecting TOS, they're practically begging for its downfall. I feel like the downfall is the point. One less pesky option in existence, allowing people to escape commodification. The employment records of the executives now in charge all scream this. All right, so they're going in. Here is a bunch of, I'm not going to read that one right here, but you can see that there's a lot of people everywhere are frustrated because we do not want to be part of this world where we're constantly getting crammed ads at. Now, we're going to jump over to another controversial one. And if you guys are brain deadly concerned and unsubscribing from the channel and blocking it because I happen to vote for a person that you didn't like, get ready, folks, because I'm going to quote from Brian Lunduke now. Oh my God, he's gone full-fledged right-wing crazy person mode. Like it or not, Brian Lunduke is an excellent journalist. He gets his resources, he knows what he's doing, and he's been a tech journalist for a long time. So if you can't get over the fact I'm quoting from Brian Lunduke here, I'm sorry, you need another checkup from the neck up. It's got to happen. This is from December of 2023, and it illustrates, now this is the data from 2022 to 2023, Mozilla's CEO gets $6.9 million a year. Maybe if we're trying to have an open source browser, we shouldn't be paying the CEO that much. I mean, the vice president here only makes about $300,000. The president and executive director makes $350,000. Actually looks like with the extra compensation and the main compensation, the VP makes more than the president and executive director. It kind of looks like it because the vice president here of global programs does 314 plus 76. The president and executive director does 344 plus 29. So I think they're maybe that's about the same. But then you got the CEO making $6.9 million. Well, we talked about how to make a business profitable. Why don't you pay your CEO less? What does this person do that justifies that much more income than the vice president and executive director? And FYI, most of your CEOs, they just pass the decision making to somebody else, but they're making tough decisions. Not my experience. Mozilla CEO compensation goes from, it gets a $1.3 million pay raise. They're looking at the various subsidiaries here. This is during the time that the CEO got a $1.3 million pay raise, the Firefox user base went from 3.79 to 3.04. So way to go, Mozilla. Apparently, if you drop that, maybe we'll see a massive rise in usage. I don't know. Looking at their cash accounts here, what I found interesting here is their cash accounts from 2021 is on the right, 2022 is on the left. See, their total cash accounts went up to 513. And I was looking at each individual line items here, and a lot of them go down, except this one here, deferred taxes and property and equipment taxes. Oh, I'm sorry, just the deferred taxes skyrocketed up. So they did some business investing. That's what happened there. They did a bunch of business investing. What would they do in the business investing with that amount? Well, this is about the same time that they acquired Pocket and the VPN that they were doing. So that you can take a deferred tax on that as you move down. That adds to the cash increase. So they had $1.3 billion in assets in that particular year. So yeah, their CEO is not making a ton of money compared to the assets. But if you do want to talk about how to keep a project afloat, less outgo might be a little bit better. Now, I'm not mad at the CEO necessarily if they're going to be making that much money, but don't be doing all sorts of unpopular things in here and then have all of your audience going, congratulations, folks, you've just shot yourself in the foot. I have a sneaky suspicion that Mozilla is not going to recover from this. I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to continue to decline. Now, there's going to be people like me. The change here was not major. This is more of an informed consent of what they were already doing. It had a lot more to do with the fact they just started recently. We covered it a few months ago, doing the privacy. Was it called it was the PPA, privacy protection attribute, and they opted it. It is an opt-out, not an opt-in. And that's really what they were trying to do there. Is that was really why they needed to change the terms, because a lot of data was being sent from your browser back to them. You could easily turn that off with a check mark, and you could do that very easily. You can set that in a policy and install Firefox over a policy. For me, for one, I'm not abandoning Firefox immediately because of this, because there's basically one checkbox. I use the ad blockers, and there's no other ads or content in there. And I do a pretty good job of making sure that all of those things that send data back to Mozilla are disabled anyway. And so that certainly, for me, it doesn't impact it. But my strategy has always been, you need to be using multiple browsers. If you're done with Firefox and you want to stay in the engine not supporting Chrome, the Chromium base, then look into Waterfox, LibreWolf, or Malvad browser. Tor browser is also a fork, which is unimpacted by this, but that one is one that should be reserved for much more offline, much more privacy-focused things. It's not the best browser to use for your day-to-day, and it certainly is not for anything that you're going to be logging in with accounts on, for sure. All that being said, of course, if you're like, okay, I'm done with the whole Firefox base entirely, use Brave browser. It's going to be the best one. Some people suggest Vivaldi as an option. I'm not a huge fan of Vivaldi. I do use it in my workflow, but I'm not a huge fan of it. But that's kind of where we are at in the scope of what's going on, what their updates are. I don't think this helps them. I think this just hurts them furthermore down the road. So with that, thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.